Yeah. Ladies coming to the scene with the knowledge that's it. Spitting nothing but the facts and it's about to be lit. See, yeah. Yeah. Let me hear you say, yeah. Yeah. Sit back and take a listen, cause the teaching and course, they share a passion and a talent, a human resource. See, yeah. Yeah. Let me hear you say, yeah. Yeah. Empowering ladies with a voice, and it's about to be fire. Did I forget to mention that? They're both from GI. Let me hear you say yeah. Yeah. Let me hear you say yeah. Yeah.
Hey, cousin.
Hey, welcome back. Hey, cousin.
Yes. We are back, y'all. We're going to let some people come on in. We need
join us.
Come on in.
Come on up.
So we can join us in this hot topic on tonight. This is not a topic you would want to miss, y'all. I promise. So come on in. Come on in the room.
Ready.
I hope they're ready. I hope y'all got your cocktail or your wine. I hope you got your cocktail or your wine tonight.
I'm
because
ready.
We are ready to have some heavy discussion. Join us in this hot topic on tonight. This is that you? That's me? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I turned it off.
Okay. Yes. So I see 5 people coming on in. I see 1 person on my page that's in. We need a few more folks to just come on in and join us. We need you to join us because this is a hot topic tonight. We have a special guest tonight. We're going to talk about some real stuff on tonight. And so we need some audience participation. We need to hear your thoughts. We need to hear your expression, what you think about tonight's topic. We just need you to join us in the conversation tonight.
Yeah, we definitely are going to invite our guests to the conversation today. We've got some questions lined up. We've got a special guest, like Nikki said, lined up, and it's going to be exciting. It's going to be a really great show. We've been waiting. I think, Nikki, I'm going to say with bated breath.
Yes,
I have been anticipating this topic.
Yes. And it's going to be a hot topic on tonight. Before we get started, we just want you to remember, if you have not done so, to visit our website, nikkiandmissy.com. If you did not listen to episode 1, which was called Say My Name, we need you to go and listen to episode 1. You can also visit our website to purchase the tea that you see that we have on. Say my name, say my name, say my name. And you can purchase a tea for yourself via our website. So we just need you to visit and check us out. You can learn what we're all about, what our podcast is all about. We are a podcast that is dedicated to the ladies, but tonight we are getting the men's perspective because our brother's perspective is very important. Mm-hmm. It's important to us. And we are unapologetically Black. We're unapologetically women. But we realize the importance of our brother's voices. And so tonight is his and her voice, okay? Her voice featuring Nikki and Missy, but we also are going to get some perspective from his voice. And so that being said, let's just kind of start off with our disclaimer. We do not offer legal advice, okay? So our podcast is dedicated to women. We are HR professionals. We give our perspective from a women's perspective, an HR perspective, but we are not lawyers. So the views, the thoughts, and opinions expressed here on Her Voice are solely our own. And we do not represent the opinions of any entity whatsoever, which we have been a part of, that we are now a part of, or that we will be affiliated with in the future. So these are our own expressed views, and we just want you to know that. So that being said, Melissa, Missy, let me show you my pen. I got to show the audience my pen.
Let me see.
Because I was excited when I found this pen. Can y'all see that? It says, I'm rooting for every everybody black.
I love it. I mean, want
I'm
to
rooting for
know.
everybody black, okay? We support black businesses, black entrepreneurs, black community organizers, those who are out just doing their thing. And so who are we rooting for on tonight, Melissa? Let us know who we're rooting for.
Tonight, we are rooting for Legacy Sedan Services here in the DMV. Legacy Sedan Services is owned and operated by Kevin. That's right, Keevi in Hamilton in the DMV. Now, I first ran across Kevin's business in a group called DMV Does, and those of you who attended our launch, you know that when we launched, I was in Costa Rica.
Mm-hmm.
So when I came back, Kevin was there to provide airport transportation. And when he pulled up, I thought I was on Coming to America. They were like, oh my goodness, who is this? I'm like, oh, little old me, you know.
Right.
But
did they put the rose petals down for you?
You would have thought.
Okay.
Literally,
okay.
people were staring. They were like, whoa. Yeah. So, just top luxury, high-end car services. I can't say enough about Kevin. Even in the process of coming back, my flight was delayed. I gave him the information. He kept up with my flight. He made sure he was there, with all of the changes that took place. He avoided traffic. It was amazing. So I recommend Legacy Sedan Services. They offer services for party buses, airport transportation. They have those sprinters that are, very popular for your girls' night out, your guys' night out, weddings, any sort of luxury car or luxury transportation services. Hit up Kevin at Legacy Sedan Services. And the telephone number is 240-678-3464. That's at legacysedanservice.com. And the email address is legacysedanservices with an S at gmail.com. And I'm actually going to drop the information. Why not drop that in the chat on the live?
Yeah, drop that in the chat. And if you are in the chat, if you are joining us, I see some folks have joined us. I need y'all to drop in the chat and just say, hey, cousins, because y'all are all our cousins. And so we want you to check in and let us know that you're here, that you are here with Nikki and Missy and HeR podcast on tonight. I just need y'all to check in and say, hey, cousin, as Melissa is preparing to drop the Legacy Services information, rooting for everybody black-owned business in the DMV area. If you are looking for transportation services, he is your man. He's the one you go to. Excellent service. And tell him I will be looking him up when I come to the DMV area soon and very soon.
Will do.
Yeah. Hey, yeah. So, hey, Sonny. I see my girl, Sonny. Hey. I see my soror, T. Grinnell. Hey, soror. Hey, cousin. Y'all check in with us. Let us know you're here. Hey, cousin. Our real life cousin, Nikki Green. I see that she didn't check in. She's our real for real. All of y'all are real cousin, but Nikki is our real cousin.
Real blood cousin.
Our real blood cousin. So I'm not the only Nikki in the family. It's two Nikki's in the family. But hey, what's up, cousin Nikki? We're glad that you have joined us on this evening. And we have a very hot topic on tonight. Why is it a hot topic? We're talking tonight about harmony of the sexes. Hey, there's Rashonda. Hey, Rashonda, Miss Armstrong. Hey, girl. I see you checking in. So harmony of the sexes. And I'll give you my perspective of why this is a hot topic for tonight. Missy will give her perspective. But so often we always hear battle of the sexes, men versus women. And I from my own observation, lately I have just seen so much of the battle and the struggle, particularly as it relates to Black men and Black women. There's always a battle. There's always a struggle between us. And masculine energy and feminine energy and what that means. And if a woman is independent and if a woman is on her, on her grind, on her grizzy, is she exuding too much masculine energy? And if a woman has made it to a certain level in her career or she has a certain talent, is she exuding what we would often call masculine energy? And we just see so much of that. And at least I see so much of that on social media and some of the people that I interact with. When Sha'Carri Richardson first came out and we were rooting for her and it was all about her going to the Olympics, we saw I saw personally observed a lot of back and forth about, she's very masculine. She's exuding this masculine energy. And my thought is she's an athlete. She's cut up. And she's at the top of her game. She's an athlete. She's a Olympic athlete. So, of course, she's going to exude some type of dominance. She's a competitor. And so often, I think that us as women who are career-oriented women, professionals, when we get to the top of our game, we are frowned upon for exuding a certain type of energy. And now, back in the day it was called one thing. Now in 2021, it's like she's masculine. She has too much masculine energy. And so tonight we're going to kind of dig into that. What's your perspective, Missy? Why do you think this is a hot topic tonight? And we're going to introduce our guest pretty soon. Yeah. Why do you think tonight's a hot topic?
It's a hot topic because, like you said, in the social media, you've got the Derek Jacksons of the world and the Kevin Samuels of the world, right? And everyone has an opinion. And I personally don't subscribe to any notion that a relationship should be one way or another. I believe that relationships should be whatever two people make it. But everyone has an opinion, and we're here to give ours. So.
Right, we're here to give ours.
We're here to give ours. But as of late, it's just been a lot of discussion, at least among me and my friends, about femininity, what that looks like. Have we gotten away from femininity? And what do we need to do to reunify Black families? So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the reunification of Black families. We're going to talk about, where this disconnect came from and how we can get back to, what the power of Black families. So
because there is power in Black families. There's power in Black, marriages, and so. We say this time and time again, we're unapologetically Black, we're unapologetically women. And so we're going to talk about that tonight. So I think now would be a good time to bring our special guest.
Yeah, when we started talking about who we might want to invite to this conversation, we thought, okay, who's someone who would A, bring a wonderful perspective, right? B, be the gentleman that he is, right? Be transparent, right? And someone who is very well respected in the community.
And someone that would give it to us real, okay? So I hear way too often Black women don't like to hear the truth. And so we needed to determine who is just going to tell us the truth, but also tell it from a perspective that was received well by Black women, because you got to talk to us as Black women. You got to talk to us in a certain kind of way. You just can't say any old thing.
Yeah, and you and I, we both Pisces, so we got.
Yeah, you just can't. Just can't give it to us. And, you got to come to us correct when you are correcting us or checking us or telling us the truth. That's just a truth that we just need to admit about ourselves as Black women. And so I'm going to bring to the stage our D9 brother. We call him Professor Lau, and we're going to bring him to the stage in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Hey, cousin Professor Lau.
What's going on?
What's up?
I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yes.
We adore you.
Yes.
So sweet. I'm just honored. I appreciate it, Nikki.
Yeah, so
And
we want you to introduce yourself, Professor Lau. We call you Professor Lau, but we want to give you an opportunity to just tell us a little bit about yourself, your profession, and also why you think tonight, the harmony of the sexes, why do you think tonight is a hot topic?
well, like I said, I appreciate and I'm humbled and honored at the opportunity to be on here with you two. Nikki, I've known you for quite a while. It's been really nice having you around the city. I'm so sad you moved away,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, it's
And I
okay.
know,
I'm
yeah,
not far.
right. But it's been nice to meet you as well, Missy. So to your point about me, I'm just me. I'm from Indianapolis, Indiana, born and raised. On the playground is where I spend most of my days.
Hey, mic check, mic check. Yeah, yeah. Every time we quote a hip hop lyric is mic check, mic check. Okay,
That's
go ahead.
right.
That's the one. That's the
Yeah.
one. But I was raised in a single parent household, but I actually had the honor of having my grandmother be in the house with us. So my siblings and I got sort of that dual generational upbringing, um, and some different difficulties with fathers, and that kind of situation going as well. Graduated from Ball State University. Chirp to all my people out there.
All right,
Uh,
all right.
Had an opportunity to be in a great organization called Alpha Phi Alpha. I don't know if you can see it in the back. You know what I mean?
Okay, okay,
Always got to
okay.
represent.
Yes.
And I think this topic, it's always going to be one that resonates with us and it gets the
Mm-hmm,
fire going because nobody has the answers.
Mm-hmm.
And
mm-hmm.
I think as
Yeah.
long as we can come to the table with some productive solutions and learn from the mistakes of others in the past, I think it'll always be a fruitful and productive conversation, even though it'll always leave something to be desired because none of us are perfect and none of us know exactly what's going on from every dynamic because
Mm-hmm,
there's so many varieties of people with different backgrounds and preferences and upbringings and styles of
mm-hmm.
parenting and everything.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. We're just going to go right into our topic. Um, I just want to preface it by saying that at some point we're going to invite other individuals. We want to hear from our brothers out there. If there's any brothers out there, please check in with us. Say, hey, cousin. Let us know that you're here in the chat. But at some point, we may want to invite other brothers into the conversation. We may want to invite some other ladies just to get their views and their perspective into the conversation. So before we do that, I just want to kind of lay some ground rules, okay? Because this topic can get spicy, it can get hot, it could get heated. At least that's how I have seen it.
Mm-hmm.
So we just want to say, before we go into all that, we need anybody that we invite to the stage, anybody that we invite to join in this conversation to remain respectful of one another. We need to understand that we will value each other's differences. So we all come from a different perspective. We all have different backgrounds. We all have different experiences. And so sometimes we bring those experiences and what we have experienced in our childhood, in our, just in our realm, our current realm of life, we bring those to the table. And so we want to make sure that we are respecting and valuing each other's differences. We don't want to make any assumptions or generalizations. And when I say that, we will not start a conversation like all women or all men, okay? Because um, generalizations just don't help the conversation, okay? We're going to keep it classy today. We learned, me and Missy learned from our live lunch to, we got to make sure we keep it classy. So we're going to refrain from any foul language. It's not that we can't keep it real and we can't share our thoughts and our perspective, but we're going to refrain from foul language tonight. We're not going to do any gender bashing, and we're not going to say the N word on tonight. So even if we don't get an opportunity to invite you to the stage, we want you to post your comments, post your thoughts, post your perspectives in the chat room. And at some point, either myself or Missy will make sure that we pick up your perspective, we pick up your thoughts, and we share that with the audience broadly. If you say something that's on fire, we'll probably delve into that conversation. So we need you to stay tuned and stay checked in with us. And either we're going to invite you to the stage or we're going to share your comments out loud. So with that being said, anything else you want to add to that, Missy, before we
No,
get
that was
started?
perfect. That was perfect.
Okay. So there, and we're going to start with you, Professor Lyle, and then you can share your perspective as well, Missy. But just kind of in this first kind of segment, masculinity versus femininity, or masculine energy versus feminine energy. That's kind of the hot topic for 2021. Okay, you hear that so often. She got too much masculine energy. But what does that mean? What does it look like?
Man.
And those of you who are in the chat, put that from your perspective. What does that mean? Masculinity versus femininity, masculine energy versus feminine energy. What does that mean from your perspective? What would you say, Professor Lyles?
Yeah. So everybody who's listening, watching, if you're on Facebook Live, go ahead and get the type in because we want to see all that.
Yes.
But your question, I think a lot of that conversation is based on traditional gender roles.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have to take that into account and, even coming up with a mental framework to understand what those words even mean. Like where do they come from? Are they stuff that was just around the house and, our father just said these things out loud? Are they biblical? Are they, Western culture? You know what I mean? So just coming up with a way to even look at the definition of masculine energy or masculinity, feminine energy, femininity. It's important to even know what they mean, right? And where they come from so that we can have a real proper application of those things as the conversation goes forward.
Right.
So what do y'all think towards kind of the origin of these words?
I don't know. What do you think are the origins, Missy?
I think they are derived from traditional gender roles. That the roles that we played in the household, where a man would typically be the person who went out and worked hard and got, was full of grit, right? And the woman who was the soft-spoken, homemaker who was, the soft place for everyone to fall. I think that's, in my opinion, that's where that came from.
I think, and I'm going to preface this with this comment about an article that I saw, and I don't know if it was an old 1950s publication of maybe it was a 1950s publication. I can't think if it was a Ebony Jet or if it was one of the predominantly white publications. I can't remember, but I do remember reading. It was an article, and it was an article that said how to be a good homemaker, and it was directed towards women, and it gave all of this kind of like what good homemakers or good women should do as wives. It's like you should have the house clean. The house should be clean by the time your husband comes home, and you should have dinner ready, and dinner should be warm, and you should, clean the house on this day and that day, and the children should be this way and that way. And it was very much if I could say from an HR perspective, it was like a job description for a wife, okay?
Yes.
And how she should operate in the home. And so I think that mindset in 2021 has definitely continued to carry over. And a lot has changed for us as Black women in terms of career and education, and we're breaking glass doors, and we have a vice president who's a Black woman. There's so much that's different for us as Black women, and we have been sculpted in culture, as you said, Professor Lyles, by Western culture. And Western culture says that women are supposed to behave and act this way, and men are supposed to behave and act this way. And if you deviate from that, then you're in error, or you're in jeopardy of not being, particularly from a Black woman's perspective, you ain't gonna find no man, you ain't gonna have no husband, you're not a good wife, you ain't gonna, and so I think that just we live in a time that has not changed our perspective, and we have not thought differently about what it means to be feminine. Now,
Mhm.
do I think that there's benefits to femininity? All day long? You know,
Mhm.
do I think there's some benefit to being traditional in your marriage? Yes, all day long. If that works for you, that works for you. If it works for my marriage, it works for my marriage. Um, but I
Yeah.
think we just need to think a little bit differently
Yeah.
about masculine versus feminine energy. I don't know. What do you guys think?
So you
Right.
hit on a really good point. Sorry, Nikki. I mean Missy, but you hit on a really good point when you talked about the magazines from years past. Um, Propaganda, marketing, advertising. That's not what I do for a living. I don't make propaganda, but I have from my career in marketing, I have a thorough understanding, psychologically speaking, about how imagery and the repetition of imagery plays into your perception of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Mhm.
when it comes in the form of a magazine that you deem for you, like
Mm-hmm.
Ebony Jet and that kind of thing,
Mm-hmm.
you instinctively trust that the representations of different products, services, and imagery that come in that magazine are for you as well.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
So in the culture that in those times when those things were popular, it was even in cartoons
Mm-hmm.
from the 60s and 70s when the woman was the homemaker. And I remember cartoons where they would invent like a microwave that would instantly make Thanksgiving dinner, and it was just the man sitting in the back and his arms were folded sitting at the table waiting for his turkey to be delivered.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? So it's like all of that stuff played into how we perceived ourselves. So is it, art imitates life,
Mm-hmm.
or is it life dictates art? You know what I mean? So with the magazines, the cartoons and all that kind of stuff that we created as our Western culture humans that we are, did we buy into what was being sold to us,
Mm-hmm.
saying this is how men and women have to act? They have to be definitively separated, and you can be punished if you don't act this way. You can lose your
Mm-hmm.
job, you can lose your husband, you can, not make money, you can be threatened from your neighbors and all that stuff for choosing to be different from what the culture prescribed to you.
Mm-hmm.
And we lived for 3-4 decades with those kinds of rules hanging over our heads.
Mm-hmm.
So now
Yeah.
we're in this place where people are challenging those preconceived notions and assumptions. So like
Mm-hmm.
you talked about Shakari in her, masculine energy, but is it? Because
Shout out to Shakari. Say
she's
her
an
name.
athlete, right?
She's an athlete. Yeah.
She's going to be hyped when she finishes running. All the adrenaline is still flowing. So
Mm-hmm.
biologically, in that frame of mind, what really is the difference between a runner, man or woman, who just finished a race and you want to do an interview?
Mm-hmm.
They're all going to give this really heaving kind of celebratory tone to them that could
Mm-hmm.
sound very similar.
Yeah.
Mhm.
She just
Yeah.
gave everything she's got,
Yeah.
and you
Mhm.
want to ask her questions about something that is not really in the headspace that she's at.
Mm-hmm.
So how she delivers her answer, you get to judge it because we all have opinions about stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. So, real quick, Kenyatta Doss. Hey, Kenyatta, thank you for checking in.
Kenyatta,
Um,
she's a huge supporter of the podcast. Hey,
yes,
girl. Hey,
so
cousin.
yes, she is a supporter of the podcast. She was one of the individuals who, oh, I don't know where Professor Lyles went, but she was one of the individuals who won our say my name
Mhm.
shirt. But Kenyatta said that in her head, masculinity equates to being the head, being the provider, being the decision maker, and then femininity is being the supporter, the comforter, the mother, the caregiver. What do we think about that? Is that true? Is that I know from a traditional sense that those are our roles, but what do we think about that?
I think that I'm like on the edge of my seat trying not to jump ahead
Go ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
because, you know, all day long, what we hear, what really drove this conversation was the roles that we play now, right? And how we've gotten away from that. And those are the roles that we played, but today, we don't play those traditional roles anymore. And we want to know, why don't we play those traditional roles? What was the disconnect? How do we get here? And I'm on the edge of my seat, like, come on with the real conversation.
Let's get nitty and gritty. So this is the question. And we need some men to check in and share in the chat, and soon we'll invite somebody that's willing to come on board and share from their perspective. But and I'm just going to say this, I'm going to preface it with this, Kenyatta, that's my thoughts. I do believe in masculinity being the head, the provider, the decision maker, and femininity being the supporter, the comforter, the mother, the caregiver. I come from a Christian background, so obviously that kind of shapes my perception in terms of what I think about men and women and in the household. But I'm also a career-driven woman, and a woman that's all about, if you want to say, I'm about making money and getting to where I can go in my career. So this is my question, Professor. Do you believe that Black women have just become way too independent? And is being independent a negative for Black women, being too independent?
The first part, do I believe too independent? I don't think so. Okay. Because I think Black women, first of all, I think Black people are the most resourceful people on the planet. Mm-hmm. And all of this is PTSD, the residuals of the slavery that have occurred.
You're getting into it now. Brother. Go ahead. You're getting into it. Come on.
That's the word. That's the whole word.
That's the word. Before you even say it, it's a word, brother. Come on with it.
Because we are all traumatized.
Yeah.
And not only are we mentally traumatized and jailed within our minds, but also we've been plucked out of our reality and inserted into situations that we've had to figure out from without the boundaries and the culture and the norms and the tools and resources that we originally came from. Mm-hmm. So when we talk about this subject right here, you have decades and decades of men being removed from the house. Mm-hmm. So now we're end up with a situation where a woman has not chosen necessarily to be a single mother, mm-hmm. but she has to.
Yeah.
Because the children still need someone to love them and to grow them up in hopes that they will not repeat these negative cycles that we've been forced to experience, right? Mm-hmm. So now with generations of men not being in the house, naturally what's going to happen is a lot of conversations. So a woman is now preparing her daughter for an unfortunate possibility in her future. Mm-hmm. So in her future, she's being told from every angle, from the grandmother to the mother to the friends to the cousins and aunties, girl, you got to learn how to do that yourself.
Yeah.
You got to learn how to take care of this yourself. No, you don't need him for that. You can learn how to do that yourself. So again, out of necessity and resourcefulness, because of previous lack, we've had to do things. So mm-hmm. I don't think it's a negative problem per se that Black women are independent. And I don't want us to frame independence as being a negative thing, because it's fantastic. Independence is freedom, mm-hmm. right? But the difficulty is in this context of relationships is when it can't match up with your other party. When there's not a man who can match wits with you, when there's not a man who can come in and assume the roles that we expect them to assume, whatever those assumptions are, whether mm-hmm. they are he is the provider and the decision maker and the disciplinarian or not. If there's not a man available to meet those things, the woman still has to do them.
Yeah. But how would he know how to meet those things? Because I'm going to I'm going to make an educated guess. Everybody on this call is an African in the diaspora, meaning we are all descendants of slaves, right?
Mm-hmm.
So as far back as we can think in our lineage, we have never seen a unified family, right? We've never seen that. Husbands and fathers were ripped from families. Mothers were caretakers for their own families, or whoever's children were in their, you know, homes, and their whoever they served, they were caregivers for their families, right? So we have been these resilient women, right, who have carried families for generations on our backs by ourselves, because even before this whole and I'm just going to say this perception that Black men have walked out on the families, and that's a perception, because that's not true for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
But even before that, they were ripped. They were ripped from our families, dating back to when we were ripped from our homeland, from the motherland, and then ripped again, you know, through mass incarceration, and through Vietnam, and through all these other mediums that have been designed systemically to tear apart our family. So when we talk about getting back to Black families and unification and harmony, what does that look like? What does that truly look like? What do you think, Nikki?
In 2021, what does it look like?
Mm-hmm.
You know what? I'm like Professor Lau. Like I'm still searching for the answers for that, because and this is where I see the disconnect, because we often do not, as Black people, as Black women, as Black men, we don't even take the time to think about and go back to our roots and think about the systemic, or the PTSD, the post-traumatic, you know, slave syndrome. We don't even think about that.
Mm-hmm.
We just automatically butt heads.
Yep.
You know, you too independent. I'm gonna just tell you straight off. You know, I'm newly married, and I am, you know, in our home we're kind of traditional, but as I stated, I'm all about career and progression and things of that nature. But just from people in my atmosphere, I've been called a feminist, and I'm like, how do you even pick that up? Like, what am I giving? Because I empower Black women, because I'm all about Black women, and so I'm even trying to understand it for myself, because we don't even tend to, as opposed to kind of thinking that the history of ripping Black men and Black women apart, and ripping our Black men as the head, as the provider, as the decision maker from their homes and from their families and from their children and from their wives, goes way, 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 way back.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it started in slavery, but we also saw it in mass incarceration.
Mm-hmm.
We saw it when welfare came into play for Black women, and then the government said, we'll give you some money, but the man can't be in the home if we give you some money. So, you know, we don't even think on those terms. We automatically go into the butting heads.
Mm-hmm.
And you're too masculine, and you're too independent, and women, they're not ready for a husband. And, you know, we just automatically go into the battle of the sexes, as opposed to thinking we are both Black men and Black women. It's not just Black men who were victimized by the system.
Yeah.
We were victimized as well.
Mm-hmm.
We were just maybe victimized in a different way. Black men suffer mass incarceration, and we were victimized as Black women in a very different way, but we're both victimized.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
We both have our trauma.
Yeah, we both have that trauma. And so I'm trying to figure it out too. You know, and sometimes I check myself. I'm gonna give a good example. I remember working, and this was recently, I worked out with a trainer, and he was telling me how to do one certain exercise and, you know, lift weights. And he was trying to help me to do this exercise. And he was like, stop being so independent. You know?
Stop.
Let me help you. Let me show you what you need to do. And And it was fun and joking in the moment, but and I'm a reflective person, so I'm always reflecting and checking myself, and not in a way to down myself, but I had to think, damn, I'm very independent.
Mm-hmm.
Like I have a good husband, who is all of those things, supporter, provider, and all those, but in a lot of ways, I still operate in that independent mode because I was single for so long. I was raised by a single Black mother, and my mother, it wasn't uncommon to see my mother moving furniture around the house. She ain't had no man around, she gonna do it herself.
Mm-hmm.
And so I developed that same mindset.
Yeah. You didn't have a choice.
I didn't have a choice. It's like, okay, you ain't gonna do it, I'm gonna get it done my damn self. So
But in the context of that situation in the gym, what is your perception of that Black man who told you being too independent right now, so that you could hear what he had to say and what the heart, the spirit of what he said, without being offended by it?
Respect. I respected what he was saying in that moment, because he was the person of authority. He's the one teaching me in that moment. He's the one supporting me in that moment. So it was a moment of respect that made me say, okay, well, okay.
Exactly.
So it was a moment of respect.
So going back to what I think Kenyatta, her values, her perception of men and women, it fit that situation right on the head, because you had a guy tell you something that could have been offensive if you didn't look at him in the respect that he has demonstrated that he deserved, because he's the guy who's coming to support you, help you change your life.
Yeah.
And by him telling you something that makes you reset your attitude, you can go, oh shoot, I snap out of it, and you're right. So let me listen to you, my instructor, and hear how I'm supposed to be doing this, so that you can let me know, so I can be successful going forward.
Yeah. Good thought. Takia, I'm gonna read Takia's thought. She said, sometimes we're not used to a man taking the lead. When it happens, we have to be open to it.
That is a word.
Willing to learn from each other. That is a word. Thank you for that, Takia.
Mm-hmm.
We have to be open to that. Yeah.
And you have to recognize it too, though, when it's, when you're in that and you have a man who is, the type of man who, helps out, who opens the door, who does, all those chivalrous things that maybe we're not used to. And he has to be patient too, because, it is a matter of getting used to being treated another way. You're relearning, right, what a relationship could look like. And on both ends, I've been there. I've been, in a situation where, listen, I would go out of like sorority conference. I would go out of town and I wouldn't hear from my partner the whole conference. No, did you get there? No, did you get checked in? Do you need anything? I was just gone. And then my next relationship, he was checking in did you make it home from work? I was like, wait a minute, what? You nosy,
This is different. This is a different.
Yes. What land is this?
He cares about me.
All of my business. No, but it was all love. It was all care and concern that I just was not used to. What you mean? Don't touch doors. You opening all my doors. What do you mean? You're gonna make sure I'm okay when there's a storm and the lights are out, and you're gonna send me and my kids to the hotel to make sure we're okay. What do you mean? You are going to check on my mother because you're in town. So you want to know if my mother needs anything. Never in my life. Who are you, sir? Who are you? And it's what I'm getting used to, because when you've had the complete opposite and you got to sit back in that thing and say, wow, okay. And like he says, let a man be a man. Yes. Okay. I will I'm just going to sit here. You want some shrimp and grits? Because I'm going to let a man be a man. And in the meantime, I'm going to sit in my femininity and receive it. But you have to be open to it.
Yeah. I'm just going to share this comment from our cousin, Nikki. She said, you're considered docile if you let your husband lead in this current generation. So I think it's something to be said about that, because we're Gen Xers, right? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now we are living in a world where the millennials and Gen Zers are very prominent, and they're dictating the cancel culture, and they're dictating how we view things on social media and things of that nature. And so, is there something to be said about women um, who allow? Because we come, if Gen Xers, we come from, we're one step under the generation Boomers, who was very traditional. And this kind of leads us into our next question. They're very traditional in terms of how they think about women and men roles. So in today's current generation, is it viewed as women being docile if they let their husband lead in that way? What do y'all think?
According to whom? I mean, is this
Generation?
I know I'm saying, but like, are we talking about the gossipers at church who hear about these stories, or are we talking about the supportive community of other women who's going to be like, bravo, brother, bravo, you taking care of your people?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Because you're always going to have dissenters wherever you go. There's always going to be some haters, especially those who don't have what you have and they want to dismiss it and talk negatively because they want it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And they don't understand it. Yeah.
And you know what?
Because they never had it. Yeah. Go ahead.
Before you lead me, who's leading you? Right? Because you're not supposed to let anyone lead you. So if the Lord is leading you, then you can lead me. But you're not going to just lead me into anything. So, that's important. I think an important component that people forget when you talk about submission and the man being the head and the lead. Well, the father needs to lead you, sir, before you can lead me.
That part. And okay, I'm just going to say, sometimes men don't get that. I had a recent conversation in a group that I'm a part of. Shout out to Real Talk. And the topic came up. I posted a meme that men need to understand, in order for us as women to follow you, we need to know and understand that you are following the Father, the Lord. However you want to, the higher power, however people, try to identify him. Again, I come from a Christian background, so I'm going to say the Lord. But in order for us to submit, in order for us to feel a sense of calm, in order for us to feel a sense of peace, in order for us to feel like, okay, I'm safe in his hands with him leading, we need to know that you are being led by the Lord.
We got a couple more comments in the chat. Sean Jean says, and I think the example of the trainer is a good point, because it also is about respect. Do we as women respect a man, or do we put certain parameters on when and if we will respect a man?
That's a very good question. Do we put parameters on when and if we will respect a man?
Immediately what popped in my mind was that term that I cannot stand, which is a high value man.
Oh, that's that Kevin Samuels.
Because it depends on what you value, right?
Right. Yeah.
And so if a high value man is someone who deserves respect, and if you think that's someone who earns a certain figure, then whatever, more power to you. That's not the philosophy I subscribe to. Mm-hmm. But for me, a high value man is someone who has integrity, someone who's honest, someone who is a good leader, and someone who really has your best interest at heart. And I think that the older you get, the more your values change, because I am at 43. That's going to put that out there. I don't care about how tall you are. And I make my own money, and I don't care about, what kind of car you drive. I care about what kind of person you are and how you lead and how my sons are going to look up to you. And if you cannot be a good example to them, then sir, no, you cannot lead me. So when it comes to respect, that's the type of man I respect.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. This is a good next question. And so I'm going to ask this question and then read a comment from Miss Lola Love.
Hey girl, that's my girl in the DMV. Hey girl.
Yeah,
Sorry,
so
I got excited.
the question is, how do you feel about traditional roles? And so Lola says it's a partnership. Sometimes I cook, sometimes he does. It's truly about your belief system and how you move as a unit. Personally, I love to cook, and personally, I love for a man to lead. I'm also independent and ambitious and outspoken. I'm also respectful. No, I'm not docile. I'm not looking for anyone to confirm or reaffirm my or our relationship. So, what do we feel about traditional roles as it relates to masculinity and femininity, and masculine energy and feminine energy?
You know, Carrie Hilson just kind of blew up a couple of weeks ago for this tweet that she put out, and I just found it just now. And it says, men who provide emotional security and display wise leadership will get the softest, most feminine, relaxed, trusting, guard down, submissive, nurturing version of their woman.
Mm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that tweet kind of like went all around the internet, Black Twitter, Instagram, and all that, because I think that speaks to the question that you just asked. Like, what is the effect when people are operating sort of at their maximum level of that masculine, feminine, when it comes together? You see a relationship that is the strongest. It's the circle that that yin and yang that seals the deal, and it's almost impervious to attack. Because if the guy is doing what he's supposed to do as that man, providing the security, physically, emotionally, mentally, financially, where possible, and all of that, she has nothing to worry about externally. So her focus can be sowing and growing and nurturing and amplifying everything internally.
Mm.
And when we operate in those roles, externally and internally are both covered.
Mm-hmm.
So theoretically, there's nothing to worry about. We can take over the world because we operate like that.
So if I hear what you're saying,
because that was poetic. I felt like there was a Love Jones kind of.
There is love, Hall. So if I hear what you're saying, there is benefit to traditional roles as it relates to men and women.
Yeah, I think so, because again, we'll go back to culture, religion. A lot of the way we live life today is still kind of rooted and undergirded, defined by our the Bible and our religious understanding of the way God has designed things to work. Because if you believe in Genesis, then it's hard to disprove the rest of the Bible, right? And so when we have a biblical understanding of the order, like if you look at an org chart and you're in HR and you're in HR and you understand this, an org chart is set up as a visual document that shows you the branches of how this whole system functions. And it all goes up to one thing at the top.
Yeah.
That same model exists in humanity. If God is the CEO of humanity, that same model then is duplicated or triplicated at this point in the family, where the husband is the CEO. So the model is just, it gets smaller and smaller and smaller, but it's the exact same shape. And when we do it like God designed for it to, then that he meant for it to be that we operate at the most effective manner that is possible for humans, because it was the way he designed for it to be. Now, where problems come is when people don't do that. And when we stray from each other, when we stray from that design, when we stray from the philosophy and the principles of what makes something organized, structured, strong, sound, foundational elements are removed, displaced, shuffled around into unnatural positions, now we on this unsteady terrain.
Unnatural positions. That's a good term. So that makes me think about women who operate out of order. Is there something to be said about women who do not embrace the order of things in terms of God's design? One, and just that. Because we can't get away with just being all lovey-dovey and stuff like sometimes we got to give it real to us as women. So is there something to be said about women who find it difficult to embrace the order of God's design as it relates to man and woman and masculinity and femininity?
Again, in our Black community, we've been forced to deal with certain traumas that have put us in positions that have transformed the way we have to think. And we've already kind of covered that about how Black women have had to grow up and be self-sufficient. That does cause some friction, but that's not to say that it's impossible not to find ways to still meld. Because I don't know a single man out there who wouldn't want a strong woman who can take care of something that he don't have to worry about.
Okay, that's a good one. Yeah.
Not a one. So if there's a secure guy out there, we know the kinds of worries and frustrations, anxieties that we have. And they often come in the form of, how are we going to do X, Y, and Z? Mm-hmm. How are we going to make sure that the bills are covered? I lost my job. How am I going to make sure that we can handle this? Or I want to take a vacation. How am I going to make sure that we can all get there? Whatever that, how am I going to make sure thing that we do is, if there's a woman that's his partner, that's his best friend, his equal, his everything, and she can handle some of that stuff herself, what guy is not going to love it?
Right.
Well,
that's my thought.
You would think.
Right, because and maybe it's just my perspective, because I feel like in 2021 we need to really rethink about how we feel about traditional roles. And so as traditional as I am, I also come from a perspective of partnership. Me and my husband are a partnership. If he ain't got it, I got it. If I ain't got it, he got it. If he does what he does, then I'm going to come up and support and do what I do from a financial standpoint. And there's and I think so much these days we're so stuck in the 50s and the 60s where we say the man got to pay the mortgage, he got to do this, he got to do that, he's responsible for this, he's responsible for that, and then the woman is responsible for cooking and she's washing all the clothes, and some of that is okay, but at the end of the day we are partners.
Did y'all watch the show Ready to Love with Neil and Tommy?
Yeah, I watched that.
There was this episode where there was this Black guy named Chris and this Black lady named Naira, I think. And from the day one, they were like this. Now, it's a dating show where, if you haven't seen it, it's a dating show that took place, I think it was in Houston. And there was, let's say, 8 guys and 8 women, and they're just kind of put together in one place, like real world style. And they have the opportunity to co-mingle and explore each other and figure out along the way who should leave the show because they're not ready to love, who continually is ready to love, so that ultimately there can be a couple or 2 or 3 that find love with the people who they met at this show. So there was a guy who from day one linked up with this lady, and they had been kicking it hard daily, every episode. And then it came time for him to answer some questions from the woman's friend. So the woman's friend came on the show and asked him, what are your thoughts on who should pay the bills? And he said, well, I think that a man and a woman, you know, in that partnership should split the bills, should split the mortgage, etc. This woman, Naira, felt so adamantly opposed to that argument that she threw away the entire connection that she had with that guy all those days just because of that one statement, and walked away from him.
That he wasn't even very passionate about, right? He was very much like, we could talk about it.
Totally open to talking about it. She walked away from him. And again, It's a dating show. You're there to date. You're there to find love. You've been linked up with this guy every day.
Right.
He makes one comment about who should pay the mortgage, and he says we share it. And she goes, "Oh, no, thank you."
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. I think it's time for us to invite somebody to the stage. I want to invite a brother. We're getting a lot of good comments, and we're going to try to get to some of the comments. But I want to give an opportunity to invite someone to the stage. Is there a brother out there that would like to come on who has an opinion? The question that we're just kind of piggybacking off on is, are Black women too independent? We want some brother to come on and share and
Go.
express themselves.
Can I flip the script?
Yeah, flip the script.
Because what I would like the brother to talk about is, we talked about during this brainstorming session about that tweet about this Destiny Child song, "Cater to You."
Oh, that's been a hot topic. That's been a hot topic.
And I want to know the brother's perspective on how the internet, Black Twitter, tore that song to pieces.
Review that situation.
Purity trash.
Yeah, review it. Tell us. Give it to us while we look for a brother.
Brent,
before you do that, is there any brother out there that is willing to come on, that's brave enough to come on and have just like a 5-minute discussion with Professor Lyles and me and Missy about this topic? But go ahead and share that. We want you to put in the chat. If you're willing to come on, just say, "Hey, cousin," or something like that. And I will
invite Brother Eric in there.
Brother Eric, Brother Eric has been checking in. So maybe Brother Eric, are you still with us? If you're with us, Brother Eric Johnson, we want to invite you to the stage if you would love to do so. And I'll send you a link that you can come on to the stage with us. But go ahead and set us up, Missy, about that particular instance of "Cater to You." And I like
just
that
send
song.
him the link regardless. Just send him. He'll come.
Okay, cool beans. Go ahead.
So set it up for us, Professor Lyle.
So, I don't know when they came out or when they were popular, but Destiny's Child had an amazing song that was a hit in the time frame that it came out. "Cater to You." Beautiful ballad, very nice romantic song. And the song just expressed over and over and over again how many things a woman would be ready and willing to do for her guy, because she was ready to cater to him, because he opened up the doorway to the infinite home, really, that is her heart. And so the whole song was an ode to all the things that she would do because she loves this guy. Now, a decade later, maybe, right? Black Twitter has reviewed that song again with our present day mentality and brought up a number of different kind of like WTF moments. Like, are you sure? Are you serious? You gonna do all that for this guy because you love him? For example, there's a line in the song that says, "My life would be purposeless without you." I don't know about that. And there's another line that says, "I'll help you put your do-rag on." And there was a commenter on Twitter who said, I wouldn't even touch this topic because Black men are so particular about how they do their do-rag. I don't want to help him put his do-rag on. You want a foot rub? You want a manicure?
We don't like feet.
Because it's like they're ripping the song apart and kind of taking the love out of the song. Or are they really saying you're trying to do too much?
Yeah. They said it's very much pick me, right?
Yeah.
That's another new term. Pick me.
Pick me. Yeah. And my question to that is that just the era of what we think of as feminism? Yeah. Brother Johnson is joining us, so I'm going to include him in on this stream right now. Hey there, Brother Johnson. How are you? Welcome to the stage. Welcome to HeR Voice featuring Nikki and Missy podcast. So glad that you can join us. We needed some more brothers to come and tell us. And listen, we just gonna kind of give you the real. We want you to be real with us. We were just talking about the Cater to You song by Destiny Child and discussing, are Black women too independent? What do you think? We've all expressed ourselves. So what do you think, Brother Johnson?
Well, um, as I'm married for 16 years to a very independent woman, uh, and I see nothing wrong with that. It all depends on how you how a woman carry themselves to do it. For example, uh, you can be independent and married. You can be independent and single. It all depends on it depends on how you carry yourself. Everything has to be deal with your attitude. What I did appreciate what you guys said that really hit me was how both men and women were victimized. I had to really chew on that because I've never heard in that context of saying, "Hey, women were victimized because of welfare." Uh, and I was just, I had to sit and ponder that. Then when Brett was saying he was raised by a single mother with also a grandmother in the home, and you were saying how you were raised by a single mom, and that's just is and how you pretty much you was taught, especially to be a single independent. You was taught to be independent without even probably not necessarily on purpose. And and I and I feel like the home is, the fact the two parent home thing is it's important to me. I'm very traditional. People tell you Eric is I'm traditional to the core. I was really, when I was in college, I was dating somebody. I thought I was gonna marry her. I loved her a lot. But one thing that she told me, she did not want, once she be married, she still want to have her own room.
Oh, to sleep
Yeah,
in?
her own room, sleep in her own bed.
Wow. Every night.
That maybe I don't know.
Look at Brett like.
Look, Eric's like, I don't know because I didn't get
I'm
to
like,
that part.
I didn't know.
like a babe cave or like a
No.
she shed or
I asked. I was just like, so what do you mean by that? Like, yes, my own bedroom. Like like my husband, yeah, you can have your own room, I can have my own bedroom. Not necessarily your own man cave, your own spot for you to meditate, pray, do your own business ventures, whatever. This is her own bedroom. And I was just like, and she was also raised by a single mother. Her parents got divorced when she was young. So she was raised by a single mother who's very, 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 very successful. So, like I said, it all depends on the mindset. It really it's a mindset. Like you say you newly married, and I'm pretty sure your husband appreciates your independence. Like I appreciate my wife's independence. So when you have a man who don't appreciate a woman's independence and her femininity with their independence, he's not a good guy, in my opinion.
Okay, so that brings me to the question. I had to show this. Brother Steven Tyler said, how can you be independent and married? I'm assuming, Brother Steven, this is directed towards women, but how can you be independent and married? Like, and I'm not speaking for you, but from his perspective, the two just don't jive. How can you be independent and doing your own thing, but married as well? So how do you, Brother Johnson, Brother Eric, Brother Lyles, Professor Lyles,
Well, I'm not
what would
married,
be
so
your
I can't
response?
speak to that one. So I'm gonna let Eric have that all day.
So how can, Eric, how can you be independent and married? The two don't mesh from Stephen's perspective.
It like I said, it all depends. I look at my, like, for example, if something happened to me, so I get in a car accident, I get killed, you know what I'm saying, or something like that. I believe my wife could still be able to take care of the house, make sure all the bills still paid, my kids be still raised right, and that she still be able to do what she needs to do to keep the house together, like I was there.
Yeah.
And like my wife, she we both pay the bills. We share a bank account, and we both we if she could pay the bills, I could pay the bills. She can she's still able to do her business ventures. She does paparazzi. She's works in administration. She's very good at her job, and she's independent. But do I feel like do we need each other? Yes, absolutely. I need my wife. My wife needs me.
Yeah.
But can she make it on her own if something happens to me? Absolutely. I'm not talking
Yeah.
about divorce either, because we in it to win it.
Yeah.
But if something happens, she
Yes.
definitely could be able to do it. I told my wife, I said she's very independent, and I'm not, and I don't feel no ways about it.
Yeah.
I still don't. I still feel like I am still the head of my household, and she still puts me up there at the same time.
I don't think they have to be mutually exclusive though. Like Eric is saying, like independence doesn't necessarily mean free from having to discuss things with your partner.
Right.
That's not what
She's still submissive. She's still submissive.
Yeah, independence is about you sort of the freedom to activate yourself within yourself.
Yep.
Yeah.
Listen, y'all are talking.
Yeah.
Listen, because some men don't get that. Like, it is so hard for us as women who are still career oriented, progressive, independent, all about our money and making boss moves and doing our thing It's so hard for us to be able to communicate that we can do all that and still be your woman and still have your back and still operate in our femininity and still be about our household and still take care of the laundry and still cook and clean, but we got our 9-to-5 roles, and so that even that is a topic. Like, do we shut that off at 5 o'clock and then come into wife mode? But I think it's just so hard and this is just my perspective because I'm coming from my perspective. It's so hard for sometimes as Black men to understand that we can be all that we are in our independent, progressive Black women, roles, but then also be traditional at the same time.
Trust issues though, and that
that's what I was about to say. You got
and that comes as a result of that PTSD from personal situations that he's had to face. You know what I'm saying? Because he may come from situations where a woman called herself independent, and maybe he's seen his mother be hurt. Maybe, you know what I mean? So like all of these different notions play into decisions that people make. So, and there's just so many different ways that could go. And I can't speak for every guy out there, obviously. But like I said, they don't have to be mutually exclusive. They really don't. And if he's not the kind of guy today or at this point in time where he can understand that there's a difference, then maybe that'll come with some additional learnings and some additional things down the road, because everybody's not on the same page at the same time. And we got to give people grace.
Yeah.
But we still have standards.
Yep.
Yeah.
So just because we may not line up today doesn't mean we never will. But at the same time, because we don't line up today, I still got to do what I got to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Just want to capture a couple comments. So cousin Nikki said, you need to have a secure man to be independent. You need to have a secure man. And then Nikisha James, who's part of the D9, shout out to Zeta Phi Beta. She says, being independent and also being married basically means that you are not 100% totally dependent on the other person. My opinion, if you are totally dependent on the other person, you lose yourself and you are lost if that person dies or leaves. So
Mhm.
yeah, that's a good thought. Good
Yeah.
thought.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think we lost Brother Johnson, but that's okay. We were gonna kind of check out from Brother Johnson and kind of move into kind of the next segment, which will end kind of the conversation not too long from now. But just because we get so much back and forth and the battle of the sexes, we just want to kind of move into where we talk about harmony of the sexes. How do we come back? How do we stop the battle?
Yeah.
And how do we stop from the bickering and the back and forth and the belief that, you know, we're more divided than we are unified? How do we unify? How do we come back together as Black men and as Black women, and we begin to appreciate one another? We begin to understand one another. And when I say understand, I can only speak from a Black woman's perspective. So when I say understand one another, how do we understand? How do we get men to understand that? Okay, we've been traumatized just like you. We've experienced PTSD just like you. We've been victimized by the system just like you. And we are only operating out of what we've come to know. And our mothers, our grandmothers taught us to be independent, to get your education, to do what you got to do to stand on your own. So, how do we still operate in that, but then bring ourselves together with our Black men and still be unified and bring our families back together and see that as an importance with one another? So that's where we kind of want to take the conversation. How do we come back together? How do we reunify?
Well, I think a lot of different things are running through my head. But if I can put it into a really basic framework for actually how it happens, I think it probably is a 3-step process with a number of different dominoes underneath each. But I think first and foremost is that if we were to try to start a conversation about this today and see something happen from it, the first thing I think people need to do is understand the commonality that you just shared
Mm-hmm.
and approach the situation without the vitriol of us against us.
Mhm.
You don't understand me. You don't understand me. Like you
Mhm.
said, we've both been victimized. That's our
Mhm.
common bond. That's our commonality. We both have had terrors enforced upon us that make us bonded, that make us similar enough to set a level ground. The second thing that comes next is we have to see value in the unification.
Mm-hmm.
Because if either party can't understand that together we can go farther, then they won't.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
And that's that rising tide raises all boats idea. For example, make it plain. There's a bunch of people out there who think that it's probably bad that the woman makes more money than the guy in a relationship.
Oh, get into it.
Why is it bad? Because if she is for you and you are for her, even though she's bringing in more money, don't y'all have more money?
Ego.
Come
Exactly.
on.
But when y'all together have more, if you maybe you can be the one researching how to multiply these dollars,
Mhm.
investing in yourself, taking courses on cryptocurrency or stocks and investments and bonds and insurances and ways to amplify what she's bringing in, so
Mhm.
that she doesn't have to do that work.
Mm-hmm.
But you can bring the intellectual capital when she brings the financial capital. So now together y'all do more. Again, understand the value in y'all being together in the first place. And
Mhm.
then the third thing is retraining. So understanding that there's commonality between you two, seeing the value in the fact that y'all can do better together, and then each person taking a very concerted effort to retrain themselves from what we know in our past. And one of the things that I want to do before we close today is share a bunch of resources, because I mentioned I'm in marketing, and the images and the things that we habitually let come into our minds, because we are what we eat.
Mm-hmm.
if we start to take in new and better things, new and more powerful information that leads us in this different direction than we're used to, eventually the information will catch up to where we are, and we will be on a different path that improves our lives. So I want to share a bunch of Instagram accounts that people can start following.
Yeah.
So that in the real world, you can take a practical approach to try to start changing the way you think, what you see.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to invite a young lady to the stage so we can kind of finish out the conversation. My sis, Every Nate Tinsley, she also has a podcast, and she's has her platform where it's the Winning Wives, where we talk about being winning wives, obviously. And so I just sent her the link. So if you would click on that link and come on to the stage, we want to invite you in to just kind of finish out this conversation. But her comment before she comes on stage, we'll give her an opportunity to do so. It says, it's okay to be independent in marriage as long as it does not cause division. You have to know how to stay in your lane and your boundaries in marriage. And so, yeah. And so, when we think about, and we've mentioned this already, and Missy, you let me know what your thoughts are, but we've had some, when we think about being reunified and bringing back the Black family, we have to acknowledge the historical events that have led to the dismantling of Black families. So what would you say, Missy, are some of those events from your perspective, those significant events in our history that have led to our dismantling?
Well, we talked about mass incarceration. We talked about welfare. We talked about Vietnam. We've talked about slavery. But from my own personal experience, I will say that, I was raised by a single mother who was raised by a single mother. My grandparents were married. My grandfather was in and out of the home. He struggled with addiction and really women, right? So he had his own families, and he would float around to wherever. And he would leave, and my grandmother would be left with no income, no resources to pay the bills, and frankly, no education. She had a 7th grade education. And one day, and he was physically abusive on top of that. Okay. And so she, one day he left and he never came back. And she had to figure out what to do. Now, my mother and her her siblings were observing this, and she tells me stories about my grandmother being pregnant and the lights getting turned off and her crying and not knowing what to do. So what do you think that taught my mother, right? As a young woman watching her mother go through that, it taught her that, she was never going to rely on anybody.
Right.
And my mother literally told my grandmother, I'm never getting married. That's birds, right?
Yeah.
Based on what she saw. And so when I grew up with my mom, my mother, now y'all might laugh at this, but my mother, I never saw her with a boyfriend ever. Wow. She only had girlfriends that called the house. I think when I was 16, I asked if she was a lesbian. She thought that was real funny. I was very serious because I never saw her with a man.
You're like, what's going on, Mama?
I'm like, Mama, is you a lesbian? No. Right.
You like girls? No, yeah.
But I never had that, to look at, to see what a family looks like with a husband and a wife, or even a co-parenting relationship, right? Yeah. And it taught me to be very independent, but it also taught me on the flip side of that not to have boundaries, because even though my grandmother went through all that, guess what? She never left. He left.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And so when I had to develop my own boundaries in relationships, I was like, well, dang, women don't leave, the men leave. Mm-hmm. Now that's a whole nother.
That's a perception that you developed.
That's the perception I had, and that's what our grandparents went through. They went through addiction. They went through infidelity. They went through gambling. They went through all those things, and they stuck it out even when there was trauma, physical abuse, right?
Yeah.
And I'm fortunate that I never, had a situation like that where it was taken that far with physical abuse. But I certainly have allowed too much in relationships because I didn't have an example of setting those healthy boundaries. So
Yeah.
I may be overly independent but it was because I was taught through example. And Nikki and I, our grandmothers are sisters.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And we family. So we have similar family experiences, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where it comes from.
Yeah.
Your schema, what you saw when you were growing up, what you saw, the examples of a woman, what a woman is, what a woman does, what a woman puts up with
Yeah.
in a relationship.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I want to welcome to the stage. Great thought, Missy. I want to welcome to the stage my fam, Elvery. Hey, girl. Again, she is the owner of Winning Wives on Facebook, and she drops wisdom, she drops knowledge from a wife's perspective. And so, welcome, everyone. We want to give you an opportunity to introduce yourself. But as you're introducing yourself, we want you to just kind of go into kind of our ending family look like.
So I think she's kind of froze.
Yeah, you cut out for a moment, Nikki. But feel free, you you were invited here, and we're so happy to have you. And go ahead and give us your take.
To be here.
What you want to talk about?
She was sharing some heat in the chat.
I am excited to be here. So my platform on Facebook and Instagram is actually Love Minus Limits. My Winning Wives is a private group where it's just for wives for us to kind of go deeper in some of the conversations. But yeah, I'm enjoying this conversation. And so when you guys, the last question that you talked about was like, how can we begin to get on level playing field with Black women and Black men? I honestly believe that we need to wipe the slate clean. We need to throw out what we seen from mama them, what we seen from grandmama them, what we seen everybody else do. And we need to start building our own ideas, our own thoughts of marriage, our building from what we know now. Because if we go based on what mama them did, I see my mom be verbally abused. I see my mom accept less than what she should have. I went with my mom to throw bags over the fence, and then the next day those bags are in my living room, and I'm like, what are we doing here? Like, so all things. So by the way, I've been married 23 years, and yes, and so that's, you guys, it's been a journey, but that's one thing that me and my husband did. We didn't bring anything that we both seen. We started our own. We started from ground up. This is what I need. This is what, granted, I was 18. He was 20. So we had a lot of growing up to do. But one thing that we learned is that we are a team. We are partners. We are going to respect each other, listen to each other. And honestly, for us to get back, it takes communication. Communication can solve, effective communication can solve 90% of the problems between men and women.
Yeah.
Yes. Talk on it. Communication. Saying what you want.
Yes.
Saying what you need.
Exactly.
And listening from a place of understanding, right? Instead of a defensive place, listening really to understand. Yeah.
And that's one thing I constantly do is check myself. Am I listening to respond or am I listening to understand? And that makes a huge difference, because how can you help? How can you fix? How can you be in a relationship if you don't listen?
Yeah.
You love by listening.
Yeah. Love by listening. I
love that.
I like that. Love by listening. Okay, thank you for that. What else? What else can we do to reunify the Black family, to bring ourselves back together, bring ourselves back to a place where we appreciate one another, where we respect one another, where we respect each other's differences, that we allow each other to be individuals?
We need to deal with our traumas. Like you guys have said, we have trauma. we need to deal with it, because trauma shows up in different ways. It may not always show up the way that you think it's going to show up. It can show up with you being disrespectful. It can show up with you, always having the last word. We have to deal with our traumas. And sometimes we think that stuff is cute. It's not cute. Popping off at the mouth, that ain't cute, sis.
Yeah. You are not on Real Housewives.
But they
several steps back.
But the culture says that that's strength.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's toxic.
That's toxic. Being the angry Black woman, that's not who you want to be.
Yeah.
Being the tough Black man who can't accept responsibility or can't own your stuff when you're wrong. That ain't it, bro. Like, we have got to learn how to deal with our trauma. That's where we start.
Yeah.
Learning who we are as a person. Who am I? How am I contributing to this mess that we have going on?
Yeah, which is a good point, because Lola Love says we got to self-reflect. We need self-reflect individually as Black women and individually as Black men. What are we bringing to the table? What toxicity are we bringing to the table individually?
Yeah. Because you have to be whole to be in relationships. You can't show up as a half person in a relationship. You need to be whole. And until you begin to deal with your own stuff, you're just going to be dropping bags at somebody else's feet for them to unpack your bags. You got to unpack your own stuff.
Cue Erykah Badu.
Bag lady. Mic check.
I'm sure all of us can speak from some level of experience on that note too, because I know that in previous relationships, I've messed up because I didn't deal with something. And I brought that in, maybe even unknowingly, or maybe knowingly. And, the relationship ultimately would crumble and fail because I wasn't equipped to handle certain parts of me yet. Because when you're in a relationship to be married for 20 plus years like you have to constantly reevaluate, reassess, and be able to communicate these changes and these dynamic parts of your personality to your partner. But if you're not used to doing that work yet, you're just going to be present and making full of mistakes that, you can take 2 steps forward and 3 steps back. And it just doesn't feel good in a relationship. It doesn't help you progress. It doesn't help y'all work together. Like she said, you do have to be whole. And then you have to go embark on your independent learning process to remain whole.
Yes.
And I
made those mistakes, and I didn't do that.
It's a journey.
Yeah, that's what I was just about to say. People think that marriage is the destination. That's where the journey starts. It's a journey. You never arrive. Just when you think you're comfortable with this situation, he changed, she changed, and people think you should change as you grow and get older. You should grow in wisdom. You should change. I shouldn't be the same wife I was at 18. Absolutely not. And exactly. And people are so afraid of when your spouse grows or when your spouse, change something, or I don't like that anymore. They're like, well, what's wrong with you? I'm growing. You need to grow too.
I'm changing. Yeah. And we have to anticipate that change from one another, right? Like we go into, I think men go into marriage or they go into relationships and they think, they don't want you to change. They want you to stay how you are. But when you take on marriage and you take on relationships and you take on motherhood and you take on wifehood, that changes
you. Yeah. And you should change.
You become a different one. You may still be independent and all, but you become a different woman because you take on a different life role. So that's going to change you automatically.
Yeah.
Well, I got to throw in a joke. That's why Black Twitter was mad, because Destiny Child said you're gonna remain the same chick I fell in love with. That is a lie.
That's a whole lie.
Ladies, listen. Beyonce is a different woman at almost 40 than she was at 18 when she first met Jay-Z. Okay.
Very much so.
Yeah, she's not the same woman. You don't have the same mindset. It's just something about marriage that just totally kind of reconfigures your everything.
Yeah, because you got a whole new person. And that person that you're blending ideas, you're blending backgrounds, you're blending so much. and all that stuff ain't gonna blend easy. It's gonna be some stuff you be like, whoa, like I didn't see that coming. So you gotta be prepared and equip yourself when those things happen.
Yeah.
How we doing on time? Anybody got a hard stop? I know we planned for a period of time, and
we only planned for 90 minutes, but we're over that now. But I just want to say this, and we can go a couple minutes longer. But I just want to say that my response to how do we reunify as Black families is that we need to recognize and realize that we need one another.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So women, we can't be in this mindset, and I know it's hard to get out of that because we grew up independent. Our mother was single, our grandmothers were single, and we grew up with nothing but knowing how to be independent. But we need to realize we need men. We need our Black men, and I can testify to this because in my trauma in my younger years, I have been guilty of saying, I don't need no man. I don't need no man. You know,
I said it last week.
I'm guilty of that.
Being honest.
Hey, we keep it real here at her voice. And we may have some of that thought and that perception, but we absolutely need our men. We absolutely need our Black men. Y'all hold value. We need y'all. You're significant to us. You serve a purpose in our lives, and we just need to understand that from each other's perspective, that we need to hold one another up. We need to support one another. We need to recognize that we both sexes.
Yes, need one another.
It's so good to hear you say that. And when you talked about Beyonce a few minutes ago, I instantly thought about, okay, you said she's not the same woman she was at 18 as she is almost 40 now. Neither is Jay. Right? He had this song Big Pimpin' that came out, and the first line in his verse is, I thug 'em, F 'em, love 'em, leave 'em, because I don't effing need 'em.
Hey.
And later on down in the verse, he said, not for nothing, ever macking. I mean, not for nothing, never happened. I be forever macking.
Yeah, mic check.
The question of give my heart to a woman.
Yeah.
And then go ahead and get one. And now y'all becoming this amazing couple.
Right.
Who he was when he was 26.
Yeah.
Ain't the same either.
Because your dynasty ain't complete without a chief like me.
Ain't that
mic
it?
check. Mic check. Yeah.
The lessons are in the lyrics, y'all.
Yes.
For sure.
Yeah. We need each other. We need to, especially in this day and time, and I hate to take it here because, I'm very in tune to what's going on a political platform. That's just me. I'm into politics. I'm into all that. And when you look and you observe what's going on in our world, how they are, I'm just going to say, the majority, or they're not necessarily the majority now, right? We're the global majority. But when we think about the fear they have of us in our rise, and the fear they have of us taking over and no longer being in control and no longer being the center of, the universe or what have you, however you want to term it. It is so important for us now in today's time that we just pull on one another and we draw from one another and we support one another and we understand one another because we need each other in 2021.
Yeah, can I say something?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I wouldn't be me if, Professor Lyle, if I didn't try to provide some level of education.
Yeah, go ahead.
So there's this thing called axiology, and it's the study of values. Now, if you think about cultures around the world, and it looks at the highest level of commonalities across racial lines, cultural lines since the beginning of our humanity and the tribes that we came from, right? So, and these things are so high level that they make sense when you talk about how they manifest in reality. So, for Caucasians, Caucasian Americans, Europeans, their axiology is rooted in member to object relationships. What does that mean? Think about conquesting. Think about Vikings. Think about manifest destiny. Think about all these terms that you hear, Knights of the Round Table. What did Christopher Columbus want to do? He wanted to go out and get stuff. Mm-hmm. They used to rape and pillage our villages and their own villages to get stuff. They wanted to acquire and accumulate. They still do. African, Afrocentric people who come from that sort of African diaspora, our axiology is rooted in member to member relationships. Think about why even today who has family reunions? Black people. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You know, and when you speak generality, white people don't have family reunions like we do. Right. Mm-hmm. White people got more money. White people have more stuff. White people have estates and mansions and Fabergé eggs. Mm-hmm. We don't, because we care about going to each other's house and playing dominoes
and spades
and
bid with.
We care about member to member relationships.
Yeah.
Now, because those are rooted in our essence, sort of as humans and our culture, where we come from, because we come from tribes, we come from the idea. For example, it's our saying that it takes a village to raise a child. Mm-hmm. White people don't say that.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Black people say that because we care about the group.
Yeah.
And so the reason why I brought that up, to go to your question about what do we do to reunify the family? We already have something in place, but we don't look at it like that. Have you all ever studied the principles of Kwanzaa? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. The principles of Kwanzaa, there are 7 principles, even though they come in the form of a holiday. The principles themselves speak to the souls of Black people and our axiology, our value system, because we care about each other. Umoja, which is unity. Kujichagulia, which is self-determination, so I can do anything that I put my mind to. Ujima, which is collective work and responsibility, all of us. Ujama, which is cooperative economics, all of us. Nia, purpose. Kumba, creativity. And Imani, faith. Right? All of those things are important to us, and they have been important to us from our value system since we were back home.
Yeah.
So if we want to take an approach to reunify our family, it's time for a homecoming.
That's right.
And if we want to get to a place, and the reason why I say that is because we already understand that language. Mm-hmm. Because it's in our soul. We have family reunions, which is coming together. It's cooperation. Black Wall Street existed because of cooperative economics. Mm-hmm. We have better schools when we go to school with each other, like in Chicago and New York or the Harlem Children's Zone. When we do it as our own community for ourselves. So if we want to get back to an amazing family, to an amazing relationship between men and women, we already have 7 principles that speak to our souls and resonate with our culture and our values. And if we use those, I think we'd be all right.
Wow. I need to drop the mic right now. If I could drop the mic, I just absolutely. Like, how do you drop the mic?
Yeah.
That's good. Mm-hmm. We got to come back to ourselves. We got to come back to the principles by which are inbred into us inherently. Mm-hmm. And I'm using my HR jargon, but that's what I hear you say, that we need to come back to what we know.
That's it.
Our history. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
it's
good.
In us. It's in us.
Yeah.
That was really good.
That was my professor. I had to put that.
Hey, professor. Yeah.
You took us to school.
You
Gotta
have
teach the son.
any last words for us, Sister Tinsley? I know, please share with us before we let you go and we kind of end. Please share with us your Love Minus Limits social media and things of that nature. Where can we reach you? Where can we know more about what you're doing?
Awesome. Thank you. I so appreciate this.
Yeah.
The first thing I do want to say is that we have to value each other. We have to believe in our own value. We have to know who we are, whose we are, and we have to stand for each other. We have to stop fighting against each other and we have to stand together and love, love, love. Whatever that looks like to you, love goes beyond marriage and relationships. We have to love each other, brother, sister. When you see another black, speak, hello, smile.
Mhm.
We
Yeah.
have to love each other. That's where it all begins. We have to stop turning our nose up at people just because of what they look like. You never know what a smile, what just a hello can do to somebody. So
Yeah.
that's where we start valuing each other. But to find me, Facebook and Instagram, my page is Love Minus Limits LLC. And couples come to us when they are ready to work on their marriage. We honestly believe that if you are not enjoying your marriage, you are not doing something right.
Yeah.
So, Love Minus Limits LLC on Facebook and Instagram. And I want to thank you for inviting me.
Thank
Thank
you for
you.
joining
Thank
us.
you for
You're
joining us. We
so welcome.
appreciate y'all. Love Minus Limits, Facebook and Instagram. Thank you for joining us. We're gonna sign off from you and kind of end our segment. Thank you for joining us. We really appreciate your thoughts. I
Thank you.
appreciate what you shared on this evening. We appreciate Brother Eric Johnson, who's still in the chat checking in on how do we just kind of reunify,
Mhm.
bring this thing together. Missy, do you have any, thoughts in terms of how we reunify before we just kind of, end in a little bit here?
I think it's really all been said. It really boils down to understanding. What I need from
Yeah.
you is
Mic check,
understanding.
mic check. Yes, yes,
Coming together to really do the work, right? To listen, to understand, and to um, not give up on one another. I think
yeah,
that, it's hard work, but it's worth it. It's hard work. And, when you think about even biblically, you're not going to get to the levels that God wants you to get to without that relationship,
That.
without that man, without that
yeah.
woman. And people don't like to hear that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because maybe you are at a level, but guess what? In order to get to that next level for what God has intended for you, you have to connect with your partner. You have to, be in that union, be in the relationship in order to get to that level. I would say that, even maybe 5-10 years ago, when I first started in HR, I was amazed by how executives would look to men for promotions and really make a determination, honestly, based on whether or not they had a family.
That.
Wow.
They made more
Yeah,
money if they had a family. They
yeah,
got promotions if they had a family. They got invited to those events where those decisions are made if they had a family. You may be blocking your blessings by saying, I don't need a wife. I don't need a husband, because we are designed to be a union.
right.
So I would say, we got to figure out a way to come together and to make that thing happen, because that's the way God intended it.
Yeah, yeah. We got to understand one another. We
Mm-hmm.
got to understand that we both experienced the traumas. But, I think we said all that needs to be said. We need each other,
Mm-hmm.
and we just got to, we have to understand that, and we can't continue to allow the battle between one another
Mm-hmm.
happen because we don't understand one another. It takes a
Yeah.
concerted effort for us to understand
Right.
one another. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly.
Man, I mean, we could probably go on and on, right?
Listen,
We
I'm like looking at the chat. The chat was going crazy about how much they love Professor Lyle, that he was the perfect guest to invite. I told y'all, we set it up. We knew. Bring the gentleman.
Yes.
Bring the gentleman. Yes.
Professor Lyles, if anybody in our audience is interested in hearing more from you.
Well, girl, I thought you was about to try to get him to date somebody. Hold up now. Wait a minute.
Yeah, Professor Lyles is for the taking, ladies.
No, he's not. Stop
he's not? Oh, okay. I love to play Cupid, I love to hook people up. Okay, he's not. Okay.
But kidding.
Yeah. How can we reach you? How can we learn more about what you're doing in the community and things of that? Share with us your social media platforms and things of that nature where we Professor Lyles. Professor Lyles.
Yeah. So it's on the bottom of my screen at Professor Lyle on every network. You can find me the same name. I am the one and only. And there's going to be more to come. I'm actually writing a book right now that like I said, the lessons are in the lyrics. So I'm actually writing a book that uses hip hop lyrics as motivational tools.
Oh, we love that.
Facts.
I love that.
Love it.
I love that. I'm the hip hop head. I love that. Yes.
I love that.
Yes.
So I'm working with some DJs trying to get, the right thing. So it'll be dope. It'll be dope. Using the technology and everything. It's gonna be hard.
Yes. So when that happens, you already know you have a plug with HeR Voice featuring Nikki and Missy podcast. We dropping that thing. We rooting for everybody Black. You will definitely be featured in our rooting for everybody Black.
Absolutely. That's our whole vibe. I love it.
Right on. Yeah. Like I said before, the one thing I wanted to do was I don't like meeting for the sake of meeting. I want people to have something to take with them for the information to be able to travel into their future, right? Mm-hmm. So what I did was I went through my Instagram and all that stuff, and I thought about my work in marketing. Mm-hmm. Constant barrages of imagery trains your mind. Mm-hmm. So I want to provide you with a list of accounts to follow so that your Instagram can start to be filled with positive imagery, with positive thoughts, with motivations towards marriage, towards a stronger marriage, towards mental health, and all of that operation that we need to be doing in terms of wealth. And it's okay for men to cry and everything. Mm-hmm. So I'm putting them in the chat right now.
Yes,
and
please
that entire list is full of all those different things about fatherhood, strong Black fatherhood, strong Black men, communities for women individually, mental health, and wealth, and positive Black relationships.
That's incredible.
That's incredible. That's the thing that we love to support. That's what we need as a Black community. Yes. Mm-hmm. And the hip hop edge, we love that because that's our era, right?
Yeah.
If you are 90 babies, you feel us. If you grew up in the 90s, in high school, you grew up in the 80s and the 90s, and you are 70s babies, you feeling that to the
So I'm not getting paid from any of those people, but I appreciate the content, and it's not about crabs in a barrel. I want to share the things that I think are very helpful on a consistent basis, right? Mm-hmm. It's not, a person with a great quote that they throw out on their Instagram story. The account is for this purpose of uplifting in this wealth, manhood, womanhood, or relationship context. Mm-hmm. And I know that everybody won't be able to see the chat because they may be hearing the show.
Yeah.
So that's true.
Yeah. We will share that.
We'll put it on our website.
Yeah, we'll put that on our website. We'll put that on our podcast page at Nikki and Missy. If you don't know, if you have not liked our podcast page, look for Professor Lyles's more information about his endeavor. So we will definitely share that. Rooting for
Thank you, ladies, so much. Yes. Been fun.
Thank you. Yes. Thank you.
We appreciate your perspective. We appreciate your thought, Black man. We appreciate you, period. And if you don't get nothing out of joining us tonight, just know that we need you. And we're supporting you in all that you do. So we thank you.
Thank you, Nikki and Missy. Thank you, Divine Nine representatives.
Yes.
Right.
Always representing, always representing.
Yes.
So on that thought, we're gonna just kind of end here, and we're gonna just kind of say our goodbyes to Professor Lau. Thank you again for joining us, Professor Lau, and just kind of move where we end our show. We got a couple minutes there. Thank you again, Professor Lau. So a good conversation.
Yeah, that was dope. That
Yeah,
was dope. And I love that list because it's so important what you feed your spirit, right?
right.
Whether it's intentional or unintentional, what you expose yourself to, you're feeding your mind and you're feeding your spirit. So to curate that in a way that is meaningful and motivating and positive, I just love that. I'm all about that.
Yeah, all about that. All about that.
Mhm.
All about that. We want you to visit our social media pages. You can visit us on Instagram, and you can also visit us on um, Facebook. Tell us what you thought about tonight's show, about tonight's episode 2. Tell us what you think. What are your thoughts? We can continue the conversation on our social media pages. It doesn't have to end here on the live, but tell us what you thought about tonight, what your perspective is. How do we reunify? Are Black women too independent? Just tell us what you thought, and let's just continue the conversation. And you can also visit our website. If you have not listened to episode 1, which was Say My Name, the shirts that we have on, our premier shirts, you can find those on nikkiandmissy.com. We have your size, ladies. And listen to episode 1 so you can know what Say My Name is all about. Copy you a shirt. Look for us, check us for us in the future where we'll have more products that we're sharing on our website, more episodes. What's our next episode about, Miss
Next episode, securing your bag.
Securing
Secure
your
that bag, sis.
bag, lady? How do you get to the bag? How do you make sure your purse is good? How do you negotiate your
Mhm.
salary? So just, it's going to be all about just get money.
That's right. We wouldn't be the HR ladies if we
Get
didn't drop
money.
gems in
Yeah,
HR that you can carry forward to help
yeah,
elevate,
yeah. So that's
elevate.
next. Episode 3. Look for us in August as we talk about episode 3, securing the bag. And we just thank you for joining us on this evening. And with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Missy, who's going to end us with her thought of the night.
Yeah,
And
I've been pondering, what do I want to leave everyone with, leave the family with, our cousins, and I want to leave with you. In life, there are only two things. There's that God will provide for you. There is either protection or preparation. When you have an opportunity that doesn't work out the way you wanted it to work out, when you have a relationship that didn't work out the way you wanted to work out, that friendship ended, that man left, that girlfriend, that didn't work out for you. It's all because God is either preparing you for something or he is protecting you for something. So don't sit in, it didn't work out, or, well, why didn't this happen for me? Why didn't I get this job? Why didn't I, get to the finish line in that relationship? Because your path is already written. There is only protection and preparation.
yes, mic drop.
That's it.
I'm not saying nothing else after that. Thank you. Thank you for joining us, cousins. We look
Yeah.
forward to you joining us again in future live episodes. Again, check us out in August when we talk about Secure Our Bag. Visit our website, nikkiandmissy.com. We'll see y'all next time. Thank you.
See y'all.